Hello and welcome to Live Show 121, Hidden War, World War III and the fight for a new global order. Tonight we're diving into reality that most of us are too distracted to see. A world order as we know it is crumbling, not with tanks or missiles, but with proxy wars, economic sabotage, cyberattacks and the relentless information blitz. In this special edition of Hidden War, World War III and the fight for the new global order, we'll break down on how global conflict is unfolding right now, hidden from our plain sight. And we'll also dig into the newly released JFK files and what they reveal, as well as catch up on what's happening in Belarus from Miss Minsk competition to 82-year memorial of the Khatyn tragedy, and some updates on the May 9th victory parade here in Belarus and Minsk. Plus, we're covering the protests in Turkey, the latest from Viktor Orban on the EU and Ukraine, and some news straight from Ukraine. And if that's not enough, we'll be looking at Steve Wickoff's interview with Tucker Carlson, where he dropped some bombshells about President Putin, Ukraine, and the state of global power struggles. And you know the drill, hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and share the video. Whoops, give me a second. Share the video on your social media to spread the word. All right, enough talk. Let's get on with the show with no start required. Yuval Noah Harari, a prominent intellectual and advisor to Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, recently made a striking claim. A second Trump presidency could strike the death blow to what remains of the global order. Harari's words reflect on the anxieties of globalists who champion a centralized, interconnected world, a vision I deeply oppose. Yet, their perspective is a window into the profound truth. The international system is fracturing and monumental shift is underway. This is not speculative forecast, but a process already in motion, one that demands we step back and survey the geopolitical terrain from the panoramic height. World orders are not novel constructs. They are scaffolding through which dominant powers impose structural on global affairs. Think of them as treaties among the planet's mightiest players, akin to rival mafia families carving up a city's underworld, agreeing on territories and rules until ambition or betrayal sparks a turf war. Historically, these arrangements endure until the balance of power tilts, igniting conflicts that forge new systems. This cycle has sculptured distant epochs, each marked by its architects and its undoing. Peace of Westphalia, 1648 to 1803. Born from the ashes of the 30 Years' War, this treaty concluded a devastating religious and political struggle in Europe. Signed in 1648, it involved the Holy Roman Empire, Spain, France, Sweden, the Dutch Republic, and various German states. It established a principle of state sovereignty and a balance of power, curbing any single nation's dominance. For over 150 years, it guided European relations until Napoleon Bonaparte's conquests destabilized it, culminating in his 1803 campaigns that unraveled this order. The Congress of Vienna, 1814 to 1914. After Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo in 1815, the victorious powers Britain, Austria, Prussia and Russia convened in Vienna to redraw the map. In 1814, agreements solidified Britain's ascent to the world's predominant naval and economic power, ushering in a Pax Britannicana. It maintained relative stability, punctuated by colonial rivalries in small wars, until the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 triggered World War I, shattering the Venetian framework. The Treaty of Versailles, 1919 to 1939. The Allied victors of World War I, chiefly Britain, France, and the United States, imposed this order on the defeated Germany in 1919. It birthed the League of Nations, an early attempt to add collective security, but its punitive terms sowed resentment. Germany, alongside Italy and Japan, chafed under its constraints, and by the late 1930s, their bids for dominance, Germany's Third Reich, Japan's imperial expansion, and Italy's fascist ambitions ignited World War II, collapsing the Versailles system in 1939. The US-led world order, 1945 to the present. Emerging from World War II's rubble, the United States crafted a unipolar world order in 1945, bolstered by its economic might and nuclear monopoly. Institutions like the United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and NATO, all rooted in American soil or influence, cemented its leadership. The Cold War pitted the US against the Soviet Union, but after the USSR's 1991 collapse, America stood unrivaled. This order has persisted for nearly 80 years, enforcing rules on trade, security, and diplomacy, yet cracks are widening as challenges emerge. Historically, world wars clash of titan powers. These have been crucibles for these shifts. The Napoleonic Wars, spanning 1803 to 1815, could retrospectively be dubbed the Proto-World War, engulfing continents in a struggle for supremacy. Fast forward to today, nuclear arsenals held by the US, Russia and China render a traditional total war apocalyptic. A 2023 estimate pegs global nuclear warheads at over 12,000, with Russia and the US holding 90% of them. A direct clash would be mutual annihilation, mutually assured destruction. Mad. A deterrent no sane leader welcomes, yet the absence of all war doesn't mean peace reigns. World War III is here, but it wears a different face. It's a shadow war fought through proxy conflicts. For example, Syria, Ukraine. Economics, warfare. Example, sanctions, trade tariffs. Financial assaults, currency manipulation, de-dollarization efforts. Cyberattacks like the 2021 colonial pipeline hack. Biological speculation, COVID-19 origins debates. Covert sabotage and relentless information campaigns. Disinformation on platforms like X. This is not a hypothetical script. It's unfolding daily. Through its fragmented nature, blinds most of us to its scope. China and Russia, flanked by allies like Iran and Korea, aren't aiming to torch the current order as Nazi Germany or Imperial Japan did. They're entrenched in it. Russia and China boast permanent UN Security Council seats and leverage IMF and World Trade Organization membership, upending the entire court's nuclear ruin. Instead, they seek rebalance, a multipolar world where their clout matches or surpasses Washington's China and Belt Road Initiative. A $1 trillion infrastructure web spanning 140 countries as of 2023 exemplifies this ambition, weaving economic influence across Asia, Africa, Europe. Russia, meanwhile, flexes its military energy muscle. Its 2022 Ukraine invasion slashed Europe's reliance on Russian gas by 40% to under 10% by 2024, per Eurostat, yet tightens ties with China and India. This war opening salvos rang out over a decade ago in March 2013. Xi Jinping assumed China's presidency, swiftly signaling Beijing's intent to shed its junior status. The 2015 launch of the Asian Infrastructure Bank, AIIB, now with 109 members, challenged US-led financial dominance. Then in 2014, in February, a US-supported coup in Ukraine toppled the pro-Russian president, installing a pro-Western government. Ukraine, the historical heart of the Kievan Rus, the 9th century root of all Slavic civilization, is Russia's strategic red line. NATO's eastward flirtation with talks of Ukrainian membership stoked Moscow's fears of encirclement. By 2022, Russia annexed the Crimea. An ongoing Donbass conflict underscored its defiance. Since these flashpoints, the tempo has quickened. The US-China trade war, launched in 2018 with tariffs on $550 billion worth of Chinese goods, persists despite truces. Russia's 2022 Ukraine offensive drew crippling sanctions, over 16,000 by mid-2024, per the US Treasury. Yet Moscow's pivot to Asia, with China-Russia trade hitting $214 billion in 2023. Cyber skirmishes escalate. The US Cyber Command reported 300-plus Russian-linked incidents in 2023 alone. Proxies wars simmer from Yemen to Venezuela, while X buzzes with state-backed narrative post-analyzed in 2024 showing Russian bots amplifying anti-US sentiment 40% more than in 2020. This hidden conflict teeters on a precipice. The 2025 RAND Corporation study warns of a tipping point. Within a decade, if multipolar tensions boil over, nuclear war looms as a spectre. But the real fight is for the influence of the narrative, resources and influence of war of attrition, not annihilation. World War III is not a thunderous clash of armies, but a silent, sprawling struggle reshaping our world. Russia and China's bid for multipolarity changes a fading US hegemony, fought not on the battlefields but in boardrooms, servers and minds. Its stakes are existential. A new order will emerge, whether a compromise or collapse. For now, it's a war of patience. But history teaches us that such tensions rarely resolve quickly. As citizens of unseen battlefield awareness, it's our shield understanding. This conflict equips us to face its fallout and influence its course. The next world order is being forged, and we're part of its crucible. Oh, there you go. And also, oops, what's that? That's bad there. Let's get rid of that. Sorry about that. And now let's get on to President Kennedy and the JFK files. The assassination of President Kennedy, a deep-rooted conspiracy, unveiled. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963, stands as one of the most pivotal and controversial events in modern American history. For decades, the official narrative, championed by the Warren Commission, claimed that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, a lone gunman responsible for the death of the president. However, mounting body of evidence includes recent declassified documents from the National Archives, CIA black vaults, and other leaks as recent as January 30, 2025, paints a far darker and more complex picture. The evidence now strongly suggests that JFK's murder was not a single act of a single individual, but meticulously orchestrated conspiracy involving high-level operatives within the US government, military intelligence, global banking elites, and the shadowy organizations determined to maintain their grip on power. Moreover, the subsequent cover-up involving agencies like the Secret Service, the FBI and CIA was immediate, pervasive, and ruthlessly efficient. This expanded understanding is explicitly detailed in The Assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the final analysis by Dave W. Mantic and Jeremy R. Corsi, a book that synthesized decades of forensic evidence and newly released documents to argue that Kennedy was struck by multiple headshots from both the front and the rear, an impossibility under the lone gunman theory. Combined with revelations of the 2025 leaks, the story of JFK's death emerges as a chilling testament to lengths of the so-called deep state would go to protect its interest. Here's the book here. The final analysis. A web of deception, the latest revelations. The release of previously suppressed files in early 2025 alongside the pre-Trump era disclosures has shattered lingering doubts about the conspiracy. Michael E. Coley, in his February 13, 2025 article, The Root of Conspiracy, a summary of recent classified documents, describes the truth as even darker than we thought. These documents don't merely hint of a cover-up, they expose a full-scale military intelligence coup orchestrated by forces far beyond the scope of traditional historical accounts. The surfaced files reveal a labyrinth of fraud, secret murders, and evidence destruction, all sanctioned by direct orders from the highest echelons of the US government. At the heart of this conspiracy was a coalition of intelligence operatives, globalist banking institutions, and elite secret societies. The recent released records, many of which were never intended for public eyes, confirm that JFK's assassination was a pre-planned operation designed to eliminate a president who had become a liability to their agenda. These documents, buried in the classified sections of the National Archives and CIA vaults, included memos, operative directives, and audio recordings that rewrite the narrative of that fateful day in Dallas. So what's the motive? JFK's threat to the globalist order. The 2025 leaks substantiate long-held suspicion that Kennedy's policies proposed an existential threat to this entrenched power structure. Central to this threat was his push to dismantle the Federal Reserve and restore a gold-backed currency, a move that would have stripped the central banking cabal of its controls over the US economy. Executive Order 11110, signed by JFK on June 4th, 1963, empowered the Treasury to issue silver certificates, effectively challenging the Federal Reserve's monopoly on currency issuance. Within 6 months of this order, Kennedy was dead, and his successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, swiftly reversed course, ensuring the Fed's dominance remained intact. Among the most explosive finds in the 2025 declassification is the so-called JFK Hit Memo, a 1963 Federal Reserve document labeled Directive Alpha. This memo, sent to key players on Wall Street and within the CIA, warned of economic destabilization risks posed by Kennedy's monetary reforms. It explicitly cautioned that failure to limit the situation could lead to an irreversible change of US monetary control. The timing is damning. Just weeks before this memo circulated, JFK was assassinated. Kept under lock and key, inaccessible even to researchers under the JFK Records Act, this document provides a smoking gun linking the financial elite to the conspiracy. The execution. CIA's Operation Execute, and beyond the myth of Lee Harvey Oswald as the lone gunman, crumbles under the weight of the 2025 leaks, which expose the CIA's direct involvement in the covert assassination program codenamed Operation Execute. This program, designated to eliminate world leaders who defied American intelligence agencies and interests, had operatives stationed throughout Dealey Plaza on November 22, 1963. The leaked files name several key figures. William King Harvey, a CIA Black Ops specialist, described in the documents as an asset to ensure continuity of power in extreme scenarios. Harvey, known for running assassination operations in Europe, was recalled to the US in the months leading to JFK's death. E. Howard Hunt, the infamous CIA operative later tied to the Watergate in Dallas that day, as confirmed by the 2025 radio communication logs. His personal notes, uncovered in the leaks, boast that the mission was clean and well completed. David Atlee Phillips, a senior CIA officer with ties to Oswald. Phillips oversaw operations in the Western Hemisphere and was linked to Oswald's mysterious Mexico City visit weeks before the assassination. George H.W. Bush, a recently serviced FBI memo, places the future president in Dallas on the morning of the assassination, contradicting his long-standing denials. Further damning evidence reveals a CIA orchestrated effort to frame Oswald as the fall guy. The Oswald Counterfeit Directive outlines how the agency deployed doppelgangers in Mexico, New Orleans, and Dallas to fabricate a trail of incriminating movements, whether Oswald was present or not. This elaborate ruse ensured that the real perpetrators could escape scrutiny, while Oswald, silenced by Jack Ruby 2 days later, took the blame. JFK's foreknowledge, a present marked for death. Perhaps the most haunting revelation from 2025 leaks is evidence that Kennedy knew his life was in danger. Secret recordings from the Oval Office, alongside with accounts from White House aides, captured a president increasingly aware of the forces arraying against him. In a never-heard-before audio tape recorded days before the Dallas trip, JFK is heard saying, "They'll come and get me soon. The war machine is too strong. But if I fall, let history know I tried to warn them." This chilling statement, buried for 6 decades, underscores the depth of the conspiracy and Kennedy's resolve to resist it. The cover-up, a legacy of silence. The immediate aftermath of the assassination saw a massive cover-up effort taking shape. The Secret Service, FBI, and the CIA worked in tandem to suppress evidence and destroy records. Autopsy photos were altered, ballistic evidence disappeared, and dissenting voices, like those of eyewitnesses who reported shots from the grassy knoll, were discredited or silenced. The Warren Commission, established to investigate the assassination, relied on cherry-picking testimony and ignored contradictory evidence, cementing the lone gunman narrative for generations. And let's watch the gunshots and Kennedy getting hit here in this high 1080 Zapruder film. The conclusion, a reckoning long overdue. The assassination of John F. Kennedy was not a random act of violence, but a calculated execution by a coalition of power brokers determined to preserve their control over the United States and the world. The 2025 declassifications, combined with decades of prior releases, revealed a conspiracy that spans intelligence agencies, financial institutions, and elite cabals. A conspiracy that succeeded in killing a president and reshaping the nation's trajectory. JFK's death marked a turning point, a warning to future leaders of the consequences of defying the shadow government. As we stand on March 23, 2025, with this flood of new evidence, the question is no longer whether a conspiracy existed, but how deep it ran and who remains accountable. The truth, once buried in the shadows, has begun to emerge, demanding a reckoning for a crime that altered history. Kennedy's final words echo both the lament and the call to action. He tried to warn us, and now with the facts laid bare, it falls to us to ensure his sacrifice is not in vain. Hey, exciting news from the world of archaeology. A research team recently released findings about hidden structures inside and beneath the pyramids of Giza using cutting-edge synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, technology. By analysing micro vibrations in the rock, they've mapped out previously unknown chambers and passageways inside the Great Pyramid, and even discovered a massive subterranean complex stretching nearly 2 kilometres underground beneath the Khafre Pyramid. This includes 5 multi-level structures, 8 deep cylindrical wells plunging over 600 metres, and 2 huge cube-shaped chambers. These revelations, first hinted at in the 2022 study and expanded upon the press release this month, challenged the idea that the pyramids were just tombs, sparking theories about their possible role as ancient energy systems. The team hopes to escalate further, but for now, this breakthrough is rewriting what we thought we knew about these ancient wonders. Let's watch the video created by Dreams of Atlantis, a Prior World, on YouTube to get an overall look at this announcement.
According to a recent press release, the Khafre Pyramid, is the tip of a very large iceberg. So there was a big press release that came out of Italy, made by Corrado Malanga, Armando May, and Filippo Biondi. So this is a model of what they found, and you can see a structure within the Khafre Pyramid, and then the amazing thing is you can see these structures that go down deep into the earth. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the information that's been released so far. Apparently there's going to be a lot more released fairly soon, but we'll just look at what we know so far. And I got this from Trevor Grassi's Facebook page. So thank you, Trevor. Much appreciated for keeping everybody up to date. So here's what we know so far, and we're getting this information from the abstract that was released on the 16th of March. Quote, this abstract summarizes the key points of our research, which aimed to clarify the possible hidden structures inside the second pyramid of the Giza Plateau, known as the Khafre Pyramid. This research was conducted using non-invasive techniques based on publicly available synthetic aperture radar, i.e. SAR, data, provided as open source by Capella Space and Umbra, and there's some websites associated with that. It then goes on to describe the first step that was taken before this, which was the project to scan the Khufu Pyramid and a few of the results of that. In fact, I did an episode on this when the information came out, and I've since updated it. So you'll see on my channel there's a fairly recent version of that as well. So let's just keep looking at what the new stuff is. The tomographical images obtained from the satellite data processing immediately highlighted the presence of 5 structures located at the center of the pyramid above Belzoni's chamber, which contained a presumed sarcophagus, mistakenly believed to be the pharaoh's tomb. The abstract paper then goes on to say that these structures share the same shape as the so-called Z structure found inside the pyramid of Khufu, above the ceiling of the so-called pharaoh's or king's chamber. The 5 Zs in the Khafre pyramid appear to be connected by geometric pathways, and alongside these structures, additional secondary structures are visible from various satellite angles, as shown in some of the tomographical images. The analysis of this data, obtained using entirely non-invasive techniques, are briefly summarized. These findings allowed us to construct a 3D model of the entire complex. The examination of dozens of tomographical images obtained from different angles using Capella space and Umbra radars enabled a 3D reconstruction of most of the objects inside the pyramid of Khafre. Below, we present some images from our 3D analysis. The analysis of the structures above Belzoni's chamber are intensely coloured spots which can be observed appearing in all tomographic images taken from different angles corresponding to the internal artificial structures. On the next page, it says that improvements of the signal-to-noise ratio, revealing the internal structure of the 5 Zs, consisting of 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof. So this is the raw pictures of the data that they used to create their model. And this is the model. So it reads the tomography with another cross-sectional line showing the presence of vertical structures. And if you think that was pretty mind-blowing, it then goes on to say, as observed in the 3D model below the ground level, so ground zero of the main structure, vertically aligned cylindrical structures extend for hundreds of meters beneath the Giza plateau. Notably, 8 of these structures, arranged in 2 parallel rows from north to south, descend to a depth of 648 meters, merging into 2 large cubic structures measuring approximately 80 meters per side. These features are illustrated in the topographical images and models presented. The paper then adds to that with some even more interesting detail, which is that the 8 cylindrical structures that have been identified in the tomographical image appear as vertical wells, which are hollow inside and surrounded by descending spiral pathways. It then goes on to describe the 3rd step, which is a lot of the analysis they've done based on all this data that they've collected. So they say the next phase involved analysing the tomographic data to determine the full extent of the underground structures beneath the Giza plateau. The tomographic images clearly reveal that the structures exist beneath the plateau, extending below the pyramids of Khafre, Khufu, and Menkaure, for approximately 2 kilometers below ground. So, mind-blowing as all that is, there's still more to come, and this is just a little bit of the information that they have shared with us so far. So we can look forward to a lot more to come out fairly soon, and I will keep you posted. In the meantime, this is a look at some of the models and some of the data.
Oh, there you go. What do you think? Hang on. What do you think about that? We'll get some more information out there. In the description below is her channel name and address, and if you go and have a look, there's some new videos there today. So it reminds you of the power station on Mars from Total Recall. So Katerina Tchaikovska has been crowned Miss Minsk, earning a prestigious title at the grand final held at the Palace of the Republic. At just 18 years old, she is the future director studying at BSUKI, and her interests span far beyond the stage. In her spare time, she is actively involved in swimming, gymnastics, martial arts, dancing, and honing her acting skills. Reflecting on her win, she expressed her overwhelming emotions. "I can't believe I won. The emotions are still running high. This victory is a huge step into the future, and I'm incredibly happy to hold the title of Miss Minsk." And the director of the National School of Beauty praised the new title holder, stating, "Miss Minsk is not just about outward beauty, but also inner grace. She's a young woman devoted into a country who represents herself with dignity both at home and the international stage." And the grand final of the Miss Minsk was nothing short of magical, with the evening filled with beauty, elegance and talented that captivated audience since the excitement began this February. The glamorous event featured dazzling performances by talented artists. It was truly a celebration of poise, passion and patriotism, leaving the lasting impressions of all intended. Let's watch some of this.
The whole of Minsk is a girl, worthy, beautiful, both externally and internally, and devoted to her family, her relatives, loved ones, her state, our country, and a girl who is worthy of herself will carry both within the state and in the international arena.
I don't believe this at all. I can't imagine what a step this is into the future. It's a huge step, a huge one, but I'm incredibly happy that I didn't come from Minsk. 2025, my family always supports me at any events. My mother and father have been with me all my life. My brother and sister, my close friends, they are always there. We will always support. Of course, I plan to go to Miss Belarus as well. And further plans. I think this is a very active participation in the development of our city, in the development of our active youth and so on.
And Miss Belarus is now taking, as you can see up here on the screen, is now doing the across the country, looking for people to enter that. And remembering the Khatyn tragedy, March 22 marks 82 years since the tragic events at Khatyn, a day when Belarus remembers countless victims of inhumanity and heinous crimes committed on the Belarusian people. To honour their memory, flower-laying ceremonies will take place across the district of Minsk, paying tribute to those who suffered during the dark days of the Great Patriotic War. One of the central ceremonies was held at the Khatyn Memorial Complex, where Belarusian Defense Minister Lieutenant General Viktor Khatyn laid flowers at the iconic sculpture, the Unconquered Man, symbolizing the spirit of resilience and courage of the Belarusian people. In addition to commemorative ceremonies, efforts were made to maintain and beautify the Drozhdy Memorial Complex. Speaking about the initiative, Ellen Ivanova, deputy of the Minsk Council, emphasized the importance of preserving historical memory. By cleaning up and maintaining the memorial, we not only honor the memory of those who perished during the Great Patriotic War, but also foster a sense of love and pride in our homeland among the younger generation. Let's watch this. Whoops.
Victims of the Khatyn tragedy and the burnt Belarusian villages. The name of this settlement, which never rose from the ashes, is known all over the world. On March 22, 1943, Khatyn disappeared. The village, engulfed in flames, together with its residents, forever entered world history as a symbol of the inhumanity of the Nazis and their accomplices. 149 people were murdered here, 75 of them children. This tragedy is not just an episode of war, but one of 1,000 facts that testify to the purposeful policy of genocide of Hitler's Germany towards the population of Belarus. According to the latest data, during the Great Patriotic War, fascists destroyed more than 12,000 Belarusian villages. At least 288 are called the Sisters of Khatyn. They were burned together with the inhabitants and were never reborn again. Belarusians will never forget crimes that cannot be justified or understood at memorials across the country. Flowers will be laid today as a sign of memory and deep respect for those who died innocently from the atrocities of the fascists, and there can be no statute of limitations for these crimes. The investigation into the genocide of the Belarusian people continues. Previously unknown facts of destruction of civilians are revealed. Khatyn executioners and other war criminals are sentenced in memory of hundreds of Belarusian villages destroyed by the Nazis during the Great Patriotic War, and a memorial has been erected on the site of the burned Khatyn, which has become a symbol of national memory and grief of the Belarusian people.
This is a way to express deep respect for the heroic past of our people, to honor the memory of those who died during the Great Patriotic War, and this is a great way to cultivate love for our motherland. Activists of the Public Association Belarus, the Belarusian and Republican Youth Union, and students of Secondary School number 104 took part. They are the ones in. They took it many years ago. Well, let me put it this way. The initiative lies in your hands to not just maintain order, but also to enhance the beauty of this memorial complex.
And May 9th, just show this again. May 9th is the victory parade in Minsk, and they're practicing for that now. Some photos from the practice. And Donald Trump's suggestion that USA should own all the Ukraine's power plants based on recent developments as March 2023, during a phone call with the Ukraine dictator Zelensky on March 19th, the US Donald Trump president proposed that the United States take ownership of the Ukraine's power plants, including its nuclear facilities, as part of the ceasefire negotiations with Russia. Trump argued that American control would provide the best protection for Ukraine's energy infrastructure, leveraging US expertise in electricity and utilities to secure and operate the plants. The White House framed this as a way to safeguard critical facilities like the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, Europe's largest nuclear power plant, amid the ongoing war. However, Zelensky clarified that the discussion focused solely on the nuclear power plant, not broader ownership, but emphasized that Ukraine's nuclear plants belong to its people, rejecting privatization. The suggestion has sparked debate, with some seeing as a strategic move to pressure Russia, while others view it as impractical given legal, operational and geopolitical challenges. Critics also note Trump's shift away from the prior minerals deal, suggesting his reflex and transactional approach to ending the conflict quickly, through no concrete plan has been confirmed.
To adopt a full ceasefire. President Trump also discussed Ukraine's electrical supply and nuclear power plants. He said that the United States could be very helpful in running those plants with its electricity and utility expertise. American ownership of those plants would be the best protection for that infrastructure and support for Ukrainian energy infrastructure. President Zelensky also thanked President Trump for continuing to push humanity.
Keir Starmer has escalated tensions with Russia by warning of military action and highlighting Britain's nuclear deterrent on March 20th, 2025, during a visit to the nuclear-armed Vanguard-class submarine and ahead of laying a keel for the next-generation dreadnought submarines. Starmer asserted that Vladimir Putin respects the UK's Trident nuclear weapons, emphasising their role as a crucial deterrent. He suggested that this capability positions Britain as a key player in the standing up to Russia, particularly in the context of the Ukraine conflict. At a meeting with military leaders from over 30 nations on the same day, Starmer pushed for a coalition of the willing to deploy a 20,000-strong force, including British and French troops, to enforce the potential Ukraine ceasefire, warning Putin of severe consequences if Russia breaches any peace deal. The Defence Secretary John Healey reinforced this by stating that UK's nuclear arsenal could inflict untold damage on adversaries, a clear message to Moscow. These statements paired with plans for RAF jets to patrol Ukrainian skies and troops to protect infrastructure like nuclear power plants signal a readiness to confront Russia militarily with nuclear threat as an underlying escalation. Kremlin figures like Dmitry Medvedev have responded by warning that such moves risk full-scale war, interpreting Starmer's rhetoric as a provocative stance. Despite agreeing to a limited ceasefire on March 2019, brokered by the US President Donald Trump, where Russia and Ukraine pledged to halt attacks on each other's energy infrastructure for 30 days, Ukraine has continued targeting Russian energy facilities. Hours after the agreement, Russia accused Ukraine of striking an oil depot in Krasnodar, causing a fire, and subsequently attacks including hits on gas and oil facilities. The oil transshipment point in Kuban and strategic oil airfield in the Saratova Oblast on March 20th. Ukrainian dictator Zelensky justified these actions, stating that Russia violated the ceasefire first by launching over 40 drones at Ukrainian civil infrastructure, including energy targets, shortly after the Trump-Putin call. Ukraine's ongoing strikes reflect the stance that it will retaliate if Russia doesn't honour the ceasefire's intent to protect its energy assets among an ongoing war.
Конкретно горит.
B-Hops1 in the chat says, call in the French surrender squad.
А у нас тоже вспоминать.
ED209H, Peacekeepers is a misnomer.
На замену скидывать видео.
And NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte recently stated that the Ukraine will not join the alliance, declaring the issue is off the table during an interview with Bloomberg TV on March 14th, 2025. This marks a shift from previous NATO rhetoric about Ukraine's irreversible path to membership, notably affirmed at the 2024 Washington summit. Rute's comments, made after meeting with US Donald Trump, aligned with Trump's administration's stance against Ukraine's NATO bid as part of a ceasefire talks with Russia. He also suggests that post-war normalization of relations with Russia could follow, prioritizing a durable peace over Kiev's NATO aspirations.
Ukraine joining NATO off the table. So Ukraine is left asking this question, how are we going to know we're going to have proper security?
Yeah, but he was also very clear, Pete Hegseth in Brussels, but also the president himself, that when there is a deal on Ukraine, it has to be lasting, it has to be durable. Putin should not have to try this again. So the question is then the how do you do this post a peace deal? Then I would side with the president. You first need to have a peace deal before you can get into these details. Obviously behind the screens there will be discussions on the what if there is a peace deal, how then to maintain that. But there are many ways to do that.
And former advisor Arestowitz made a shocking revelation claim that Kirilo Budanov, the head of the Ukraine's military intelligence, once proposed an extreme contingency plan to the presidential office. According to him, Budanov suggested destroying all Ukrainian nuclear power plants if the war was lost, ensuring that no one would gain control of the facilities. He described the idea as following: the Americans see us as a monkey with a grenade. They just want to take control of dangerous toys. They know our plans to blow up the nuclear power plants if Ukraine loses. Budanov was pushing this idea about a year and a half ago, saying we'd destroy everything, all Russian plants we could reach, as well as our own, so no one would have them. He seriously brought this plan to the office, proposing the principle that we'll die, but we'll take everybody with us. In addition to this alarming proposal, Arestowitz also hinted that Kiev might be considering the development of nuclear weapons, further adding to the tension and uncertainty surrounding Ukraine's strategic calculations and meeting the ongoing conflict.
They perceive us as monkeys from a grenade. Dangerous toys just want to take control of her. I no longer know, according to our plans to blow up nuclear plants if Ukraine loses. Budan dealt with this a year and a half ago. Seriously, like everything, the Russian ones will explode, and to which we will reach everything and all ours there, yes, but so that no one gets it, I took it seriously to the office there. In short, other things that we still have there, let's in principle all die, but we will drag everyone with us. They know about our terrible plans. They're Gorokovsky gathered for nuclear weapons. This means that it is necessary to control that without changing the group of insane people. So it is better to take all dangerous production under control. So that's all. It's just that the Democrats did it about this behind-the-scenes pressure and the allocation of grants to study sexual dimorphism in field mice inhabiting nuclear plants. Here are A, or grasshoppers, and these guys are simple. They say that the guys are like that. Well, let's just take it under control and that's it. It is not because they are taking our possessions. They are taking from us what can be dangerous for humanity and for ourselves.
Body cam footage from November 2024 shows James Anderson, a 22-year-old British mercenary, fighting with Ukraine forces in Russia's Kursk region, shouting threats at Russian soldiers before being overwhelmed and captured by the 5th Battalion of the 10th Marine Brigade. The ex-British Army signalman, who joined Ukraine's International Legion after losing his job, surrendered during the Ukraine offensive that seized territory in Kursk since August 2024. On March 5th this year, a Russian military court in Kursk sentenced him to 19 years in prison for mercenary activities and terrorism, with 5 years in prison followed by the rest in a maximum security penal colony. Anderson pleaded guilty through the UK Foreign Office, condemned the sentencing, asserting his status as a prisoner of war under international law.
I'm gonna fucking shoot them.
Tap, tap, no, come here. Towels for you. Max showcases a wonderful store where you can enjoy a drink. He demonstrates it here. Even in silence, you can manage it yourself. See, they are still heading there. Lie down, lie down, lie down, lie down, lie down, lie down. Where weapons are difficult, everything is hail.
Where? When is it truly necessary?
Talk because accomplishing zero tasks.
That's what the American Albies commonly express. American.
These are our courts in a special way, then each price is language.
It's difficult for our zero. Today I'm taking off the booking camera from him. Take off your hand, hold it. Look, I understand this is the very thing you came to.
Place your hands here carefully, and now listen to the sea.
This is him in the court.
Stop.
Name is Anderson James Cockrees, born 24.
Родился в Венгрии, по национальности британец. 10 марта 2019 года начал службу в британской армии и продолжал ее до августа 2023 года. Приехал в Украину в апреле 2024 года и присоединился к группе ВФУ. Оттуда я был переброшен в Курскую область в ноябре. 23 ноября я был захвачен в плен русскими морскими пехотинцами, которые ко мне очень хорошо относились. Теперь же я нахожусь в тюрьме в России.
And are now imprisoned in Russia.
Okay, and here we got the interview with Wickoff and Tucker Carlson. On the first one, Wickoff says there are conditions that the Russians will need for the ultimate ceasefire because the ultimate ceasefire is complicated.
We have made more progress in Russia in this Russian-Ukraine conflict in the last 8 weeks than anyone thought we would ever make. I hear people describe this last conversation that the president had with President Putin as unsuccessful. It's preposterous, by the way. We talked throughout a 2-hour conversation about an ultimate ceasefire, and there are conditions that the Russians will need for an ultimate ceasefire because an ultimate ceasefire is complicated. There's Kursk, where Ukrainian troops are surrounded, fact, and the Russians...
Kursk is within Russia.
Kursk is within Russia. The Russians have taken it back.
Yeah.
And they've got people trapped there, and the president doesn't want to see everybody getting killed. That's a significant battlefield condition that has to be dealt with. But on top of that...
Is that acknowledged? Like, I don't know if the New York Times is writing that story right now.
I think it gets lost a little bit. First of all, I think a lot of these newspaper stories they're agenda-driven.
Yes.
People start out saying, I support the Ukrainians, so I'm going to write the article in a certain way. Look, we want to... I want to see Ukraine come out of this okay. I want to see Russia come out of it okay. Again,
yes.
We're outcome-oriented in this circumstance means that we need a deal that the Ukrainian people can live with. We have to sell it. There's going to be various Senate approvals that we may need here, and I mean that's the political system we're in. That we're going to want everybody to be, in some respect, satisfied. So we're going to want the Russians to be satisfied in some respect. We're going to want the Ukrainians to be satisfied in some respect. We're talking to the Europeans. When I say satisfied, feeling that we came out of this thing okay with a deal that everybody can live with.
And in the next clip, the ultimate goal is a 30-day ceasefire, during which the time we discuss a permanent ceasefire. Special Envoy Wickoff. The US Special Envoy Steve Wickoff highlighted the importance of recently achieved partial ceasefire on energy infrastructure, although the Ukrainians are breaking that, which Ukraine constantly and brazenly violates. The Special Envoy announced instituting the Black Sea moratorium on maritime hits, explaining that Russia and Ukraine will refrain from attacking each other's naval units. Ukraine hasn't got any left, while conveniently omitting the fact that Ukraine has no fleet whatsoever.
we have moved Russia in ways that no one thought was possible. So in the last conversation, they agreed to an energy infrastructure ceasefire, which means Russia is not going to target Ukraine's energy infrastructure, and Ukraine will not target Russia's energy infrastructure. They've never talked about that before. Here we are talking about that. They've never talked about reinstituting the Black Sea moratorium on maritime hits. Ukraine firing on Russian ships, Russia firing on Ukrainian ships. Now we're down to, and that's going to be implemented over the next week or so. There's some details that need to be discussed, but that became a part of that conversation. That's big stuff, really big stuff. What's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is a 30-day ceasefire, during which time we discuss a permanent ceasefire. We're not far away from that, but a 30-day ceasefire is something where we have to figure out what all the battlefield conditions are, which is why I began with Kursk.
And in the next clip, Wickoff highlights Russian president's merciful approach, saying Putin said, "I'm happy to get people to wave the white flag."
But Kursk is just the beginning of it, because there's this 2,000-kilometer, that's 1,200 miles, this 2,000-kilometer border between Ukraine and Russia, where the Russian and Ukrainian troops are involved in, 50, 60, 70, maybe 80 firefights throughout this border with all kinds of different conditions. Putin asked me in the meeting, what should I do in a particular area where we have people surrounded and they don't want to give up? Do I kill them? How do I get them to give up? I'm happy not to kill everybody. I'm happy to get people to wave the white flag if I can get them to wave the white flag. And that one situation, Steve, this is Putin talking to me, is just one example of 70, 80, 90 different situations out there along this border, each one having different battlefield conditions, each one needing a separate conversation. That's what has to happen for a ceasefire, and yet we're talking about it. That's a big, big deal. Our technical teams are going to be meeting in Jeddah beginning Monday. That's a big deal. There's all kinds of good positive talk coming out of Russia about their willingness to consider all of these different things. And Zelensky had a wonderful conversation with the president after the President Putin's conversation the next day. And I think that indicates that they've got some degree of flexibility in the way that they've been thinking about finishing up this conflict.
And Wickoff said Zelensky and Yermak have largely conceded that they will not be a member of NATO. If there's going to be a peace deal, Ukraine cannot be a member of NATO, and I think that's largely accepted, he said.
I think that Zelensky and he's got a right-hand guy, Yermak, I think that they've largely conceded that they are not going to be a member of NATO. There's been all kinds of talk about whether they could still have, quote-unquote, what is called Article 5 protection,
right?
Which gives every NATO country has this Article 5 protection.
Yes.
Whether Ukraine could have that in some respect from the United States or European nations without being a member of NATO, and I think that's open for discussion. But I think it's accepted that Ukraine, and Russia, if there's going to be a peace deal, Ukraine cannot be a member of NATO. I think that's largely accepted.
And he also said the key issue in the conflict is the status of the new Russian regions. And he said, can Zelensky survive politically if he acknowledges this?
Well, first of all, I think the largest issue in that conflict are these so-called four regions: Donbass,
yes.
Crimea, the names
Lugansk,
and there's two others. They're Russian-speaking.
Yep.
There have been referendums where the overwhelming majority of the people have indicated that they want to be under Russian rule.
Yes.
I think that's the key issue in the conflict. So that's the first thing. That when that gets settled, and we're having very, very positive conversations.
And Russia controls that. In fact, some of those territories are now, from the Russian perspective, part of Russia.
Correct. That's correct. But this has always been the issue,
right?
And it's sort of no one wants to talk about it. That's the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is there are constitutional issues within Ukraine as to what they can concede to with regard to giving up territory. The Russians are de facto in control of these territories.
Yes.
The question is, will they be? Will the world acknowledge that those are Russian territories? Will it end up? Can Zelensky survive politically if he acknowledges this? This is the central issue in the conflict. Absolutely that.
And he said on a possible Putin-Trump meeting, I liked him, and I think they're going to meet in the coming months. I thought he was straight up with me. Wickoff also noted that Biden administration refused all contact with the Russians, hindering any attempts to resolve the Ukraine conflict peacefully.
Sort of an amazing story that got downplayed in the media, but you go to Moscow and then you wind up meeting directly with Putin for a long time. Which is kind of remarkable, I think, considering you're the president's envoy, but you're not.
I'm not the president.
You're not the president. Exactly right. So the Russians are very formal, as you know. In every regard, they're very formal. And so you can imagine a scenario where it's like, well, it's not the president, so our president's not going to meet with him, but he did meet with you for a long time. What did you think of him?
I liked him.
Yep.
I thought he was straight up with me. Of course, by the way, I've said that. And you can imagine, by the way, I say that, I get pilloried. Oh, my gosh. You're actually saying that you like
every American president until Biden has said that. Every single one.
Yeah,
Bill Clinton said that. George W. Bush said that. Barack Obama said that. Every president around the world I've ever spoken to is like, they may disagree with what Russia's doing or whatever, but they're like, Putin's a straightforward guy.
First of all, I thought it was gracious of him to accept me.
Yeah.
To see me. Why would I interpret it any other way? But that was gracious. Now, I'm an emissary of the president.
Yes.
And the president had a great relationship with Vladimir Putin in his first term. So I think Vladimir Putin knew that it was going to be hard for the president at this time to come over to Russia. I think they're going to meet in the coming in the coming months. But I think it was enormously gracious for him to accept me, and I need to acknowledge that. That's
it takes balls to say that.
I know, but by the way, that's the same way that I said that Sheikh Mohammed is a good guy, and because that's
he is a good guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, in our country, if you don't act like a lemming and just walk off the cliff like everybody else, then you get attacked. It's, by the way, how would we settle a conflict with a guy with someone who is the head of a major nuclear power?
Yeah.
Unless we establish trust and good feelings with one another. I don't know how you would do such a thing. And President Putin said to me in the first meeting I had, he said, Steve, do you know that I didn't talk to Joe Biden for 3.5 years?
It's craziness.
How would you resolve that? Tucker, can you imagine me and you having a conflict? I don't know what it was. You live in this house, I live in that house. Okay, I think you've encroached on my land, and we never have a conversation about it? I mean, how do you resolve things?
That's why I went over there last year, because I thought we're moving toward a nuclear war. And I just feel like if no one's talking to Putin, like someone should at least broadcast his views to the world, because we could have a war otherwise. That was my thinking anyway.
When I came back before the first meeting with President Putin, when President Trump said to me, go over and have that conversation. I think we're going to have a good, healthy conversation. Before that conversation, there was no talk about a Black Sea moratorium. There was no conversation about an energy infrastructure moratorium on hits, between the two countries. We were not talking about prisoner exchanges and all kinds of other stuff. After one meeting, and I am saying to you, not because of me, because this was President Trump sending a signal to President Putin that he wanted to resume his relationship together, and that they were going to be two great leaders figuring out this conflict. That was the message. That was me coming there. That was my message to President Putin. I was directed by President Trump to deliver that message, that we were here to begin a real discussion, a productive discussion about how to end this conflict. And President Putin, to his credit, sent all kinds of signals back to the president that this is the path that he wanted to be on, including statements that he made.
And Special Envoy Wickoff said Putin prayed for Trump as a friend after the assassination attempt, and he also presented a portrait of Donald Trump to the US president.
Second visit that I had, it got personal. The president, President Putin, had commissioned a beautiful portrait of President Trump from the leading Russian artist, and actually gave it to me and asked me to take it home to President Trump, which I brought home and delivered to him. It's been reported in the paper, but it was such a gracious moment, and told me a story, Tucker, about how when the president was shot, he went to his local church and met with his priest and prayed for the president, not because he was the president of he could become the president of the United States, but because he had a friendship with him and he was praying for his friend. It was, I mean, can you imagine sitting there and listening to these kind of conversations? And I came home and delivered that message to our president and delivered the painting, and he was clearly touched by it. So this is the kind of connection that we've been able to reestablish through, by the way, a simple word called communication, which many people would say, you know, I shouldn't have had because Putin is a bad guy. I don't regard Putin as a bad guy. That is a complicated situation, that war, and all the ingredients that led up to it. And it's, you know, it's never just one person, right? So I think we're gonna figure it out.
And Ukraine has agreed to hold elections, he said. Meanwhile, Zelensky has eliminated all political opponents, actual and potential, by shutting down all independent media outlets and banning all opposition parties. Any criticism of his oppressive regime is considered treason, with many dissenters now imprisoned, sent to the front lines, or simply missing, analysts say.
The Russian position is he's not elected, and so we can't sign any kind of treaty with him. Do you think there will be elections in Ukraine?
Yes.
You do?
There will be. Yeah, they've agreed to it. Okay. There will be elections in Ukraine. And I agree with you. I think Zelensky is trying his best. I think he's in a very, very difficult position. But he's up against a nuclear nation.
Yes.
And he's also up against a nation that has 4 times the population that he has. And so he's got to know that he's going to get ground down. Now is the best time for him to get a deal done. President Trump can deliver him the best possible deal he's ever going to get.
And we cannot cannot have that country drag us into the World War III, he said. We can't give him money forever because they'll just ground us down.
Do you think he's speaking to realistic, clear-eyed people who can, you know, who have the welfare of Ukraine in mind?
So, without getting into names,
yeah,
I've talked to multiple European leaders. And I've said to them, the more you encourage him not to be proactive at the peace table, the more you suggest that aid will continue without any conditions attached to it. No one says that we shouldn't aid Ukraine today or in the reconstruction later on, but it's got to come with certain conditions. If we're going to give a lot of money to Ukraine, we want to hear the business plan of how this is going to get resolved, because it's an unsustainable business plan if they don't have a plan for how it gets resolved. We just can't forever give money because they'll get ground down. And ultimately, and this is, we've discussed this in the administration, ultimately, what you can't have here is risk of any kind of nuclear action, even the tactical nuclear action. I mean, even if it's not a big bomb explosion,
doesn't matter.
Just a tactical nuke would take stock markets down all over the world.
Well, they haven't been used in 80 years. They've been used exactly twice in human history.
You can't allow it to happen.
It's not a precedent you want at all.
And while I think we have to get a fair deal for Ukraine, we cannot allow that country to drag us into World War III. And that's not my policy. That's President Trump's policy.
And Tucker Carlson asked, do you think the Russians want to march across Europe? And the special envoy Steve Wickoff said, 100% not.
If I can just say, what the hell is going on with European? Keir Starmer saying we're going to send British troops. Their entire military is smaller than the U.S. Marine Corps. The country is dying economically. All those countries are dying economically. Like, what are they thinking? What is that? Is that a posture? Is it a pose?
Well, I think it's a combination of a posture and a pose, and a combination of also being simplistic. I think there's this, this sort of notion of we've all got to be like Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
The Russians are going to march across Europe. I think that's preposterous, by the way. We have something called NATO that we did not have in World War II.
Do you think the Russians want to march across Europe?
100% not. I think.
Right. I feel like, why would they want that? I wouldn't want those countries. Like, why would they?
First of all, why would they want to absorb Ukraine? For what purpose?
Exactly.
They don't need to absorb Ukraine. That would be like occupying Gaza. Why do the Israelis really want to occupy Gaza for the rest of their lives? They don't. They want stability there. They don't want to deal with that. But the Russians also have what they want. They've reclaimed these 5 regions. They have Crimea, and they've gotten what they want. So why do they need more? He said, Putin's a very smart guy. Someone said to me that I was talking to someone in the administration, and they said, well, you got to watch it because he's an ex-KGB guy. So I said, okay, what's the inference? Well, he's an ex-KGB guy. He could be looking to manipulate you.
Says the ex-CIA guy to you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
This was not an ex-CIA guy.
Well, they all are.
But effectively. And I said, look, here's how I see it. In the old days, the only people who went into the KGB were the smartest people in the nation. That's who went into the KGB. He's a super smart guy, okay? You don't want to give him the credit for it, that's okay. I give him the credit for it.
They must hate you for saying stuff like that.
Well, but he is.
I know. I'm very aware.
So should we ignore it? I mean, and this is what I talk about with level setting the facts.
And Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has declared Hungary's support for the US President Donald Trump's peace initiatives, emphasizing that his country will not be pulled into conflicts and don't benefit its people. Speaking to local media and posting on X, Orban likened Hungary's stance on the Ukraine war to its rejection of the EU's migration policy a decade ago, highlighting a consistent willingness to defy mainstream European positions. He stressed that peace is the priority, predicting that more nations will soon adopt this view as Hungary resists being drawn into the ongoing conflict.
Attól megijedni, hogy vannak pillanatok, amikor 26 tagállam mond valamit, meg egy másik álláspontot képviselünk. Mert ha megijedtünk volna korábban, akkor nagy bajban lenne a hazánk. Például tele lenne migránsokkal. Én emlékszem arra, amikor 26-an azt mondták az illegális migrációról, hogy hát azt menedzselni kell, együtt kell vele élni, meg fogjuk oldani, mondta Angela Merkel, a németek kancellárja, és mi azt mondtuk, hogy hát oldjátok meg, ha akarjátok, mi meg úgy oldjuk meg, hogy be se engedjük. És mi voltunk az egyetlen ország, amelyik nemet mondott, kerítést épített, és vállalta a vitát. Tegnap volt egy olyan megbeszélés, ahol a mostani menekültügyi szabályozás ellen lázadó 8-9 miniszterelnök volt jelen, magam is ott voltam. Pontosan szó szerint azt mondják, hogy Magyarország 10 évvel ezelőtt mondott, és csinál. Tehát nem kell megijedni attól, hogy egyedül vagyunk, mert előfordul, hogy mégis kiderül, hogy nekünk van igazunk. Ugyanez a történet játszódik most a háborúban.
And widespread protests have erupted across Turkey, primarily sparked by the arrest of the Istanbul mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu on March 19th. He's a prominent opposition figure and potential presidential candidate, was detained on charges of corruption and alleged ties to the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which many view as a politically motivated move by the President Erdogan, who silenced a key rival. Demonstrations have spread in cities like Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir and beyond, with tens of thousands defying the government ban on clash of gatherings, clashing with police who have used tear gas, water cannons and pepper spray. Let's watch some of it. Mexican Last, is this a live show or recorded? It's a live show. I'm just playing videos as we talk. If you have a look at the top right hand corner, I'm there live. And former President Donald Trump has revoked several prominent figures, including Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, Liz Cheney, members of the Biden's family, and others. This decision comes amid a series of significant announcements from the Trump and his team. And Trump to run for a third term. Steve Bannon revealed that Trump plans to run for a historic third term and in 2028 continue his political influence well beyond his current term. And the development of the sixth generation F-47 jet fighter. Trump announced the creation of a F-47 fighter, a sixth generation combat aircraft designed to maintain American air superiority. Is the F-47 in the F him, the 47th president?
Capable, most lethal aircraft ever built. An experimental version of the plane has secretly been flying for almost 5 years, and we're confident that it massively overpowers the capabilities of any other nation. There's no other nation. We know every other plane. I've seen every one of them, and it's not even close. This is a next level. You know, level 5 is good. This is level 6, they say. The F-47 is equipped with state-of-the-art stealth technology. It's virtually unseeable and unprecedented power. It's got the most power of any jet of its kind ever made. Maneuverability, likewise, is there's never been anything like it, despite the power and speed. Its speed is top. It's over 2, which is something that you don't hear very often. America's enemies will never see it coming. Hopefully we won't have to use it for that purpose, but you have to have it. And if it ever happens, they won't know what the hell hit them.
And, stop that. After a conversation with the president of Turkey, the US is considering lifting sanctions and resuming the sale of F-35 fighter jets to Turkey. Trump remarked that the Allies would receive stripped-down versions of these aircraft as they may not remain allies in the future. There you go. And Elon Musk claims that Tesla is the only company capable of mass-producing intelligent humanoid robots, stating that Optimus will be the biggest product of the year so far.
All the ingredients for making intelligent humanoid robots at scale is Tesla. This is a super big deal. Like my prediction is that on this front is that Optimus will be the biggest product of all time by far. Nothing will even be close. I think it'll be 10 times bigger than the next biggest product ever made. Like that level. So. Yeah.
And here are 3 channels you might like to subscribe to on YouTube and channel. One's The Dream of Atlantis, The Prior World. The link is in the description below. Michael D. LeBrock, his last show was 4 hours live and from his visit to Belarus, and you can subscribe to his, and the links are below. And Andrew Hutchins, who covers various medical advice, and you may have seen him on this show before. His Rumble channel link is in the description below. And that's a wrap for live show 121. Yes, we are live. Hidden War, World War III, and the fight for the new global order. We've peeled back the layers of deception and uncovered the real battlegrounds of World War III, from proxy wars, cyberattacks to economic sabotage and relentless information warfare. The fight for the new global order is raging now, and the truth is most people are still asleep to it. And we took a dive into the newly released JFK files, uncovered the latest from Belarus, from the Minsk competition to the Khatyn tragedy memorial, and what's coming up with the May 9th victory parade. We will be there on May 9th, videoing that, and hopefully doing a live show from there. But the internet might be not good enough because of all the people around, so there will be a video after that. We also exposed the growing unrest in Turkey, tackled Viktor Orban's stance on the EU and Ukraine, and laid out some Ukrainian updates of the matter. And let's not forget Steve Wickoff's interview with Tucker Carlson, revealing some surprising insights to Putin's moves and the fate of Ukraine. Also, that interesting news on the pyramids in Egypt. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. And I'm organising some interviews with people you probably have heard of and watched as they have now agreed to come on after content issues we've had in the past and these previous shows. As always, thank you for tuning in, being part of this community. Your support by liking, sharing and subscribing helps us keep the show going and spreads the message far and wide. And if you haven't yet, smash a thumbs up, hit subscribe and share this broadcast with everyone. Stay alert, informed, everybody. Don't let the hidden war catch you off guard. This fight for truth is just the beginning. And hang on, we'll just stop for a second. Mahokan last said, is Belarus having massive protests? No protests here. Everything's nice. It's quiet, safe, clean. One of the best places to live. Until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and never settle for the illusion of choice. See you on the next show with no star required. Thanks again. Bye. And yes, B-Hops, I'll turn up the volume next time. Bye-bye, everybody.